Welcome to Casually Criterion. My name is Chris.
And my name is Justin. And this is our second off-week episode where we take a week off from our journey through the Criterion Collection and we talk about what's on our minds in regards to film and TV and movie stuff that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Criterion Collection, but it might sometimes. And today we have a guest with us, our friend Mike. And I guess just to introduce Mike a little bit, Mike worked at Blockbuster with Chris and I back when we used to all work there, and I roommated.
You roommated?
We sure did roommate. We roommated a long time.
Yeah, we roommated together for years during the Blockbuster days, and we also went to film school together. But yeah, say hi, Mike.
Hello, everyone. I'm the roommate.
All right. The roommated.
Yeah, I'm the one who was roommated for a while. Anyway, thanks for having me on, Chris and Justin. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited to talk about some movies.
Mike, have you followed, or subscribed to our podcast?
All of the above. I even wrote a 5-star review.
What? All right.
I've upvoted all the Reddit posts. So I think I could be said to be one of your oldest fans of this podcast.
Probably so, yeah. You listened to the episodes before we actually put the first one out. You were kind of our test audience.
Yeah.
So you've been around since the beginning.
Yes, indeed. So
All right.
Thanks
Well,
for having me.
If any of the rest of you want to follow along with the show, see what's going on, talk to us, whatever, you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/casuallycriterion podcast. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at casualcriterion. And if you just want to email us directly, you can do that at casuallycriterion@gmail.com. So go like, follow, and subscribe. Review us on iTunes as well. Give us 5-star review, that sort of standard stuff.
Absolutely, and tell your friends about us. So, what we got in store for today's episode, first we're going to do some what's on our minds, movie news for the first part. And then we're going to do a top 5 of 2017, and that can be TV, movies, kind of just whatever came out in 2017 that we saw. And then we want to do our top 3. That is going to be the most anticipated movies of 2018. We're going to look forward to what's coming up. And we're also going to do our New Year's resolutions, film resolutions, like things we want to do on the New Year's resolutions. So...
Yeah, so I guess let's just get into the movie news. Based on our episode, our last off-week episode, not last week's episode.
2 weeks ago.
We did a Star Wars Last Jedi review, and since then there's been a lot of news about it, like a lot of backlash and debate, I guess. Like there's been a lot of hatred, but also a lot of love, too. There's a lot of people coming to the defense of Star Wars, and we just kind of wanted to talk about that backlash. And I guess to start it off, I guess the big item that really made me want to talk about it was I saw an article about a petition to get Star Wars Last Jedi removed from the canon and of the Star Wars story, which I think is obviously a little over the top. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's pretty silly, I think. You know how you go on the internet and the flat earthers. Well, I believe that the flat earthers don't actually believe that the earth is flat. They're just out there trying to troll us, right? And I think that's what's happening with Star Wars. They're just trolling us. They're just pretending no one actually thinks that they can get the Star Wars removed from the canon. How about you, Mike? What do you think?
Right, I have to agree with that. I would say I think it's a large group of people, but I still think they're technically in the minority. I think most people that I've talked to do tend to enjoy the movie quite a bit. I think it's the Star Wars fans that have been there for the longest that seem to be having the hardest time with this movie. And I kind of understand where they're coming from, because the movie, while good, does take Star Wars in bold new directions that I think the franchise has never really covered before, or it feels different to them, I guess. A lot of people say that it's a betrayal of what they have always loved about Star Wars, specifically Luke Skywalker. Did you guys? I know you guys have probably been fans for Star Wars for a long time. You guys are of the same generation that I am. Did you guys feel any of that betrayal personally to your childhood hero?
I don't understand the word betrayal in regards to it, because I mean, I guess like at least like with anything that happens in this movie, I guess I could understand some betrayal if they just completely change characters, and I guess people think that they did that with some of the characters. Like some of the criticism I've seen is about Luke and his demeanor, his character, the fact that he was this great Jedi, but now he's just, you know, hiding and sulking on a planet.
Because we've never seen Jedi Masters do that before.
Right.
Yoda,
Sure.
Ben, Kenobi.
And I guess when you think about it, that's the thing, is that that's happened with every great Jedi Master. So I guess I just don't understand betrayal.
Yeah, I think what happens is you get people spent 30 years since Return of the Jedi imagining what Luke was going to do after Return of the Jedi, and they read books about it and they wrote books about it, and so they have been imagining what Luke is going to do for 30 years, and when it doesn't turn out to be what they think or what they want, that's the betrayal, you know, like and it's not, I don't think it's a betrayal. Like, I think you have to be flexible enough to enjoy it, because I think it's a really great movie. But when you spend so much time theorizing your own stuff, and I think the other thing was The Force Awakens was so it was also a good movie, but it was very beat by beat the same as, you know, Star Wars. So it didn't.
It was safe.
Branch out, or it was safe. It didn't try to do anything new.
Yeah, it was a lot of fan service, I thought, in Force Awakens, giving us like that old Star Wars that we wanted that we didn't get in the prequels.
I felt like it was, you know, Disney or the new Lucasfilm saying, "Hey, we get it. We know what Star Wars is. This is Star Wars," you know, and so that's why they played it so safe in the last movie.
Yeah, and I guess like other contentious moments would be the scene with Leia, right? That's one I've seen talked about.
Super Leia.
Super Leia, where she can survive being out in space, I guess, using the Force and fly herself back into the ship and survive. Did either of you guys like have an issue with that?
No, not me. And I'll tell you why, is because Empire is my favorite Star Wars movie, and that's a movie where they walk out of the Falcon with nothing but a face mask and walk around inside the belly of a giant worm inside of an asteroid and shoot space bats. So I think Star Wars has always been a little fantastical, and I think while we've never seen anything quite like Super Leia, I also don't think that it's anything we haven't necessarily had the track laid down for, you know?
Yeah, they can do new things. They can surprise us with stuff, and without us having to be really upset about it. What was the...
Are you moving on from Leia? Because I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
But like, do you think that the Leia thing has anything to do with, you know, Carrie Fisher actually passing away in real life? And I think some people expected some sort of send-off for her, like a death scene or something. And at least while I was watching it, I thought, oh, this is it. This is where we see her go. And it was very emotional for me. And then when she started to, you know, blink and then, you know, fly back into the ship, it was really against my expectations. Like, I thought it was kind of a beautiful moment for her to go out. And
I thought she was dead too.
Do you think it's just like, it seemed like it was set up for that so perfectly that as you're watching, that's what your expectation is, and to have it go against that, like, is sort of, it was a bit of a shock.
Maybe. I don't think I was expecting it. I mean, I knew obviously that Carrie Fisher had died and she couldn't be in episode 9, but I also knew that they said, maybe they didn't say it, but I feel like I read a while back that they said they weren't planning on changing episode 8 to work around that. But maybe I could be wrong on that. But I have a question actually regarding the Luke thing earlier. Do you guys actually think that the fans' betrayal has something to do with Mark Hamill stoking the fires and kind of giving them permission to doubt Disney? by voicing doubts of his own. Do you think that was inappropriate on Mark Hamill's part, or do you think that he should have a right to...
Well, from everything I've read about what Mark Hamill said, it was that he had doubts about Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, and then he came around.
Yeah, that's everything that I've read. And then, of course, all the articles, you're scrolling through Facebook, and all the articles are like, oh, Mark Hamill, feels... And they don't say that this was when they first started the discussion about this, and he came around and he likes the movie,
Right. But do you think that do you think it was unprofessional of him in the first place to even do that? Because I remember when those interviews first came out months ago, before The Last Jedi even came out, I remember thinking, gee, he probably shouldn't say that.
Well, I still look at it as him saying, yeah, when we first started talking, I thought that it was this was not my Luke Skywalker. This is not the one that I've been living with. But then I came around, and I've enjoyed doing this. Like, that's everything I've gotten from all the articles, and I've read about the interviews. So, like, it's just that the headlines are like, Mark Hamill hates Luke Skywalker,
Right.
I think that would be unprofessional if he talked about how much he didn't like it and thought it was bad or weird, and he talked it down. But if it's, I was unsure, I didn't like this, but as it went on, I really got into it. Like, that's a praise for it, I think. I don't feel like it's unprofessional.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I agree. I was just I read a Vanity Fair piece that was talking about how Mark Hamill basically gave fans permission to
be upset.
To be upset, and they did quote that he later reversed himself, but in the age of the internet, reversing your stance later doesn't necessarily always guarantee that it will be seen.
Yeah, and I don't think that the internet would have needed Mark Hamill's permission to hate.
Well,
they've done that before about the other Star Wars movies, I guess.
I think the internet, just in general, like, people would have been upset, like, if, say, this came out pre-internet, but the internet gives voice to the minority sometimes, to the loud and vocal minority. And sometimes that's good. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like, come on, guys.
You're right. Can you imagine what would have happened if the prequels had been released during this day and age with the internet like the way it is now?
Yeah.
That they would have been.
Yeah, it would. I hope it would be worse than this, because those movies are significantly worse.
Yeah, if you look at the audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes, it says that The Last Jedi is at like 50% right now, which is like a worse score than The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
And Attack of the Clones is awful.
Yeah, that genuinely upsets me. But whatever. I digress.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other big points you guys want to talk about on Star Wars? I just think the Backlash is very interesting and was worth
only one.
About.
Yeah, only one point, which is just that the Backlash is strong, but it looks like the everyone who's been the most vocal about it. It seems like a lot of people are wanting to rewatch it. Or watch it again before they completely make up their mind on it, which I think is something you don't hear about movies very often that are this controversial or this quote unquote hated.
Yeah, like maybe things are settling down a little bit in their brains and they're
right. Like maybe it was
kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. Like maybe it's a head scratcher and they weren't expecting a Star Wars head scratcher. So who knows? Maybe time will think of this movie differently. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's a thing that'll blow over. I don't think people... I mean, there might be... But I think, once we look back on Star Wars, most people will look back on it fondly.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Well, we can move on to the next bit of news, which I think, Mike, you brought this one up, so do you want to introduce it?
Sure. So, it turns out that Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk is the only movie in the top 25 highest grossing movies worldwide that is not a cartoon adaptation, sequel, or some kind of franchise.
Yes, it's the only live action original story movie.
That is correct. And it looks like Dunkirk is number 17 on the top 25, and it is right above Boss Baby and right below, what was it?
Coco.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So, yeah, anyway, I find this news to be pretty depressing. What do you guys think?
I mean, it is for me. I know if you've listened to this podcast at all, which, Mike, I know you have, but the listeners, if you've listened to this podcast at all, you know that I'm not that big on like superhero comic book franchise stuff because I've talked about being burnt out on like movies and films and TV that's based on stuff like these reboots of like X-Files and I guess I know I praise Star Wars a lot. But even that, like, it took me forever to see Rogue One. Like, I just watched Rogue One like 2 days ago, finally, for the first time, because I just couldn't muster up the interest because of burnout on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious if we were to look 10 years ago and see. I think 10 years ago would be about the same. 2007.
Yeah.
Even in 1997, I don't think that there's a reason why we make all sequels and franchises and adapt stuff, because there is a built-in audience already. There's an interest in it,
yeah,
and people will go see it. It is depressing, but it doesn't mean that like there aren't movies like Lady Bird to go see.
Sure.
Or billboards.
They're just not going to be in the top 25 highest grossing movies worldwide.
They never were.
Right. Yeah, that's probably true.
The big takeaway for me is that I guess there's not necessarily an end in sight of that sort of thing, because there is talk of like the superhero bubble or a bubble on these like reboots and franchise movies and stuff.
DC's dancing close to that bubble bursting.
I think that's just DC not being very good.
Right.
Yeah, but they're the ones who are going to do more damage to this bubble than I think any amount of bland Marvel movies will. I think it's going to be the bland DC movies that pop this bubble for everyone.
Yeah. I guess just looking at this, if the top 25 grossing movies are either cartoon adaptation, sequel, or franchise movie, then obviously that's working, and it's still going to work at least like for the foreseeable future. I assume like if that bubble's ever going to pop and it's ever going to go away, we're going to see a downturn in that.
Yeah, and I also don't think that it doesn't mean that we're not getting original product or film. We're getting it in TV,
and streaming and
streaming.
Are we getting it in TV though? Because like the big shows are Game of Thrones, which is an adaptation. Walking Dead is an adaptation. Fargo is sort of, I don't know what that is.
But Fargo can scratch that itch though. Fargo it's a show based on an original movie, and although it takes a lot of cues it borrows, but it's also it tells original stories. It's not like reoccurring characters, I guess, from what you've seen before. I don't know. It's a weird line. It's a weird line.
Yeah. But, we are. Like, Better Call Saul, I think is really, really good. Although I guess that's based on...
It's a franchise. It's off the Breaking Bad franchise.
Nerds. You're right. This is hard.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if we're getting into TV.
Mr. Robot.
I'm not saying... There you go. And I'm not saying that TV isn't good and that those things aren't good. There's like certainly TV is like being able to hold its own next to film.
TV's better than ever, really, as far as like the quality of what we're getting. But I get what you're saying in the sense that it's a lot, like even superhero stuff and adaptations are all breaking their way into TV too. So it seems like original stuff that's a huge hit is getting harder and harder to come by.
Yeah, I guess we have sitcoms which tend to kind of be original properties, I suppose. Yeah, but they're rebooting some of those, like Will and Grace, and then I guess there's like the spinoff of Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a Friends reboot within the next 5 years.
Yeah, Mad About You
but Mad About You and The Office is supposed to be doing a reboot.
Oh, goodness.
But, I would say, though, ultimately television, and those are network TV shows, but, like, I can't think of them right now, but there are a lot of original TV shows. What was the detective one? True Detective?
That's coming back.
and that's coming back. A lot of shows on HBO. Oh, what was the Nick? The Nick was really great. Anyways, we don't need to.
Yeah, we don't even have to go off and like list them necessarily. But
Leftovers.
Leftovers. Yeah. Chris loves Leftovers. Yeah. If we haven't mentioned that on the show before, we probably have.
I don't think we haven't. Or I don't think we have. Anyways.
Mike, have we listened to the show before?
I don't think so. I think it's just Chris, and he talks about the Leftovers quite a bit.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So anybody got any other things to say about these adaptation sequel franchises being like the top 25 grossing movies?
The only thing I have to say is I don't think it's new.
Yeah. Actually, now that I've said that, the animation thing is interesting to me because there are original animated movies, and there's, I suppose, a lot more original animated stories. Anybody have any thoughts on why they think that is? Is it easier? Is it like...
I imagine it's easier because you really need to be a hit with the kids to make those things successful, and I think it's easier to sell a new cartoon.
I don't think you need the star power
to
make kids want to go see a movie.
Yeah, I actually think it's worse that Boss Baby is on the top 25, that Dunkirk is the only live action non-adaptation non-sequel.
Yeah.
I mean, Boss Baby
it's more upsetting that there weren't better cartoons that displaced Boss Baby.
Yeah. Or even like maybe I'm sure there's a franchise movie that might be better than
Boss Baby.
I
think there's probably a lot of stuff that's better than Boss Baby.
Have you guys seen Boss Baby?
No.
Yeah, I guess so. We're speaking out of turn a little bit, but I can't imagine it being super great. I've heard people talk about it.
Is it on your top 5 of 2017, Chris?
Yes. I only saw 5 movies this year.
I knew it. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can move on into our big discussion for the episode. We're each going to give our top 5 movies or TV shows of 2017.
And the Academy Award for Best Picture.
Come on. La La Land.
We lost, by the way, but,
Guys, I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake.
Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Moonlight won. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm afraid they read the wrong thing.
I'm excited. This is fun. I think it's, I guess every podcast and place does like their top 5, and so I guess we had to as well.
Yeah. This is the first time I've ever really tried to compile a list like this.
Really, I've done it for fun.
Yeah.
In previous years, but this one feels like it has a bit more stakes because some people will hear it and then judge me.
It's true. I actually have. This is just something that I do every year at the end of the year for no reason at all, just for my own satisfaction. I tally up all my favorite movies of the year, and I don't even narrow it down to a top 10 because it's my list for myself. So I just kind of throw all the movies I liked on the list, and there's really no reason for it.
Did you have any trouble making a top 5? Anybody?
I did, because even though it's just like your top 5 and it's completely all your opinion, I wanted to have like a rounded out list. I wanted to have a little bit of everything on there to kind of represent. So I kind of fudged the rankings of some things just to get a more diverse list.
So you're admitting that you cheated.
Can you really cheat on an
you said you fudged
list?
it, so these aren't your top 5.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll be sure and highlight where I fudged, so you can know where the discrepancy is.
Yeah, I think if you tell the professors which test answers you cheated on,
they let you go.
You're scot free.
Yeah.
Okay, so this we are doing in order, right? Everyone did.
Yeah.
No, number 1's your most favorite. Number 5's your least favorite of your top 5. So I guess we could start with number 5. And Mike, since you're the guest, do you want to go first?
Sure. So these lists are top 5 things we watched in 2017. Doesn't necessarily need to be all movies. So I included a season of a TV show, which is the final season of a show that ended this year called Black Sails. It's a show that came on Stars. and it's about pirates, and it's actually a prequel to the book Treasure Island. So it tells the story about how Long John Silver and Captain Flint came at odds, and how the gold got to be buried where it was. And anyway, it's a very exciting TV show. It's produced by Michael Bay, but don't let that name fool you. It's actually a really good show.
How many seasons are there?
4. It's all said and done. The first season is only 8 episodes, and the other ones are all 10. So there's only 38 episodes of this show, and it's got better action than Game of Thrones. It's the cinematography is amazing. It looks so good. I really recommend giving it a shot if you want like a fun, nice, short adventure show.
I've actually watched a few episodes of this.
Is it an hour? It's an hour long, I assume.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an hour long. It's the writing, the dialogue. It's almost like literary in a sense. Like the dialogue is really, really good. Everyone has like these speeches. They kind of talk in like a larger than life kind of way, I guess. Like it's not super like Shakespearean, I wouldn't say, but it's definitely
like Deadwood?
Kind of, but less swearing. It seems more natural. You know what I mean? Like there's less cocksuckers being thrown around and things like that. But anyway, it's a very progressive show. It's smart. It's got a good budget, and it's beautiful. And it's short. Yeah. And now that it's over, I can say that from beginning to end, it only gets better. So the first season, you know, there's a couple episodes where it might have to find its legs, but I have a feeling that if you can get past 2 episodes, it's an easy watch.
Okay. And Chris, you said you've seen a couple episodes?
Yeah, I've seen a couple. I never really dove into it, and I guess it didn't quite keep my attention. But maybe I never got past the first 2 episodes. So
definitely do. It's got the first season had, I guess, some budgetary things. So of an 8-episode season, they had to spend the first 3 episodes kind of on land before they got out into the ship adventure and the pirating. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think they used their budget wisely, but it does have a little bit of a slow start. But if you can make it past the first, I would say 2 to 3 episodes, I genuinely think that whoever watches it's going to have a great time. It's quite the adventure.
Cool.
Yeah, that's Black Sails.
All right. And Chris, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, my number 5 is Baby Driver by Edgar Wright. I really enjoyed this movie. Obviously, it's my top 5. But the thing I enjoyed about this movie is that it was almost like a musical. Because the action was choreographed and went along with the music in such a way that it was all kind of timed out together. The getaway sequences are pretty amazing. The scene where they're all driving away, the opening sequence. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually really good as well. This is probably my favorite Edgar Wright movie since Hot Fuzz, I would say.
I would agree with that. I feel that way because I wasn't too big on The World's End. I actually think that one's kind of bad. I've tried to rewatch it a couple times and I just can't get into it.
What was the other one? Was that the only one that he made?
Scott Pilgrim.
Was that after Hot Fuzz?
Yeah.
After Hot Fuzz, he did Scott Pilgrim, and then he did The World's End, and now Baby Driver.
And he was going to do Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And then that's why it took so long for him to make Baby Driver, is because that whole Ant-Man drama that I think everyone's probably familiar with.
Justin, what did you think of Baby Driver?
I thought Baby Driver was really good. I have a couple of issues with it. I don't know how spoiler free we want to be with this. We probably
mostly
we're talking about a lot of movies. We can be spoiler free, but there's just some things that happen with certain characters towards the end that don't line up with like the rest of the movie for me.
It's a shame that I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's a shame that they couldn't have reshot all of Kevin Spacey's scenes with Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, I guess so.
They can still do that.
Because I feel like that movie came out just a few months too soon. If it had, I guess it was filmed a few months too soon. If it had been filmed now, it wouldn't be tainted with Kevin Spacey.
This is true, yeah. But yeah, so it is a lot of fun. Like I love car chase movies, and like Death Proof is one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies, like above like Reservoir Dogs and some of his other like more heralded movies, because I'm just really, really into car chases and not cars in real life though, like those don't interest me at all. But
Except for as a means of transportation.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, and I really enjoy Edgar Wright movies on the whole, and I thought this was kind of, I guess, right in the middle, right behind the Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, but ahead of The World's End and Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, well, maybe it didn't have what is his name?
Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg writing
Or Nick
it.
Frost.
Or Nick Frost. You know, like, does Nick Frost help write? No, it's just Simon Pegg that writes, right?
Officially, like in the script, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how much on set Nick Frost contributes.
But so yeah, it didn't have the Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright like script, but I think, I think
it's certainly good. It was close to my top 5.
Yeah.
For sure. It didn't quite make
like
it into
6 or 7.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it looks really good too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Like the colors look really nice. It's pretty. You
The
can
red
tell
cars.
that like it reminded me of Heat at the end, like a lot of like the way the city action scenes are filmed, and I won't get too much into details, but it's just you can tell that he was like a kid in a toy store, like trying to make a first like kind of not comedy action movie that's original, you know?
Yeah, it's very coherent, like well thought out action scenes, which kind of goes to what Chris said about it being like very carefully thought out and choreographed, and so
You know where everything is when you're watching it, unlike the John Woo movies from last week. Like like it's much more you understand what's happening, and then there's stakes to what's happening in the action sequences.
Oh, and Edgar Wright has such a strong visual style anyway that I think that's where his strength as a director really comes in, is his editing and his shots.
Yeah, and this is what his movie actually like. I thought he had the most like I want to say restraint with those, where it didn't feel like Edgar Wright shots or Edgar Wright close-ups. Like his other shots like tend to call attention to themselves and like kind of be jokes, visual jokes with like the editing and the shots. And I feel like this was a bit more of a straightforward film for him.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. I like seeing what he can do, and obviously I think he succeeds.
Yeah. I guess a more mature film would be another way to look at
Sure.
it, maybe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So my number 5, caveat with it, I didn't watch a whole ton of like the new movies that came out. I did spend a decent bit of time at film festivals taking my film around. So I do have ultimately 2 films in my list that are from film festivals, but the first one is number 5. It's a film called The Surrounding Game, and it is a documentary, and I met one of the filmmakers who was there at the festival and kind of ended up hanging out with him like before it screened, and because I had made friends with him, he was a cool guy. I went and saw the movie, and I was blown away. Like I didn't know what to expect, but it's a documentary. It's about the game Go. Are either of you familiar with Go?
No.
No? Well, for Mike and probably for the listeners, Go is like an ancient Asian game. I think it's Chinese, or is it Japanese? I can't remember. It's been a while since I watched the movie. I probably need to watch it again. But it's this Asian game, and it's basically there's a grid, and there's one player controls white, one player controls black, and you just place stones, and you have to when you surround the opponent's stone, you take a stone from it. You take one of their stones.
You want to turn all the stones white or black, depending on which.
That's a different game where you like flip them over and you change the color. This doesn't change the color. It just.
Oh, then maybe I don't know.
You create spaces. Anyways, it's probably an entire podcast to explain how Go works. But it's a documentary about the history of it. There's a lot of like if you've seen like old paintings, like tapestry type stuff of samurais, a lot of times there's like a Go board and samurais playing Go in it. There's a lot of them of like flipped over game boards and pieces everywhere where people get mad. But it goes into the history and like the cultural significance of Go, because apparently it used to be one of the arts. Like playing the game was considered an art alongside painting and writing and whatnot. And then it follows several people who are trying to be professional Go players and like the work that goes into be a professional Go players, which is interesting in a world where we do have a lot of like people being professional gamers. But obviously those people are most like video gamers on YouTube and Twitch and stuff. But seeing people play this like physical board game like professionally and trying to like rank up, and it's very interesting. I guess I would compare it to like Spellbound. Mm-hmm. Is that
the Spelling Bee?
That's the Spelling Bee one, right? It's also a Hitchcock movie called Spellbound. But
that's what I was thinking of when you said that.
Is it called Spellbound? That is like the Spelling Bee.
So, yeah.
The Spelling Bee movie. I would compare it to
more
that
than one
sort of
Spelling Bee movie, but
there was a big one that was like everyone was really into and got a lot of critical acclaim.
I think it was Spellbound, but yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, so I don't know. Does a documentary about a game called an ancient Chinese game called Go sound interesting to you guys?
I would not run out to go see it right now.
No,
but on your recommendation, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I had the same thought, and I might have skipped it had I not like become friends and hung out with the guy for like 2 days before his movie screened, and he was such a nice, cool guy. I'm still friends with him, and I have friends with him on Facebook, but I doubt he listens to podcasts. But in case he is, Cole Pruitt.
Yeah, here's a plug.
You're awesome.
Yeah, go rate our podcast 5 stars.
And I think the movie technically was made in 2016, or maybe had its first film festival in 2016, but technically it's still not like available to purchase to watch last I checked. So I guess technically it hasn't been released to the masses yet. It hasn't had a theatrical run or anything like that.
So be on the lookout.
Yeah, so watch out for their surrounding games.
That could be your top for 2017 and 2018.
Yeah, it might make it into 18 too. Okay. Okay, so back to Mike.
All right, so I guess we're starting number 4 on the top lists now, and I'm actually going to just briefly mention it because it actually appears on someone else's list higher up, and I don't want to take all the glory, but
Sure.
I'm actually going to put Star Wars: The Last Jedi on there, and we'll get into reasons why later on.
Sure. I mean, I think if you want to briefly say,
Okay,
just something brief.
Sure. So I think this is probably a Star Wars movie that I walked away with thinking about for days afterwards, which Force Awakens had some stuff to think about, but it was all like the typical mystery box stuff that usually you can get from a TV show. Whereas this movie, I was thinking about plot points, things that happen, surprises, character developments, and it has an emotional resonance that, big Star Wars movies, don't always have, even whenever they're trying to. So, yeah, it's not without its faults, obviously. So I'm not going to say it's a perfect Star Wars movie, but I would say that it's better than my expectations based on every other movie in the series so far.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and we did do a whole episode 2 weeks ago on Star Wars Last Jedi. So Chris and I won't get into too much, but when I bring it up, if we want to discuss it a little bit more, we can. And I just want to say one more thing. I'm a big fan of Rian Johnson, so it's cool to see a actually truly good director who's passionate writing and directing a series and possibly elevating it into something maybe a little better than it could have been otherwise if someone else had taken the helm. Well, Chris, what's your next one?
All right, number 4. I think for some reason we end up talking about a lot of comic book movies on here, and we're not necessarily. I guess we just debate them. But my number 4 pick is Logan, and I think that this is a movie that rises above a comic book movie. Like, sure, the characters are based on comic book movies, but it's so much better than that. You're always talking about comic book movies really only make it to a 7. This one makes it to an 8 or a 9. Like, you know about Logan, right? It's
I know
Wolverine.
It's about Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine as an old man, and then Patrick Stewart's in there, and he's much older. It's kind of like a Western. Like, I think of Clint Eastwood when I watch this movie. Have you seen this, Mike?
Yeah, it's actually to kind of piggyback off what you're saying. James Mangold directed Logan, and he actually has directed some pretty decent movies, Copland and 3:10 to Yuma, the remake with Russell Crowe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he's well versed in the Western and that kind of thing. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. Logan is good, but continue.
Yeah, basically, I think it rises above comic book movies. I don't think of it as a comic book movie.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that way. Right from the opening scene, when he gets out of the car, and you just see in his performance that this is not like X-Men 7 or 8 or whatever. This is its own thing with its own vibe.
Yeah,
It's rated R too, right?
Oh yeah, hard R, yeah.
Which is one of very few comic book. The other one's Deadpool.
Yeah,
Are there
actually,
any others?
because of Deadpool, they were allowed to make this one rated R. And it's interesting, too, because James Mangold and Hugh Jackman got together for the first Wolverine movie, which was not good and did not even rise to the level of comic book movie. It was just really bad.
James Mangold did not direct the X-Men Origins movie, Wolverine. That was someone else.
I thought I looked it up. It says director, Wolverine.
The Wolverine.
Was the
That's
Wolverine?
the second one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the first one was X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second one wasn't. It was better.
That was the
for
one
sure.
that took place in Japan. It's not good, but it's not
It's better than the
nearly
first
as
one.
bad as the one
Yeah.
you're attributing him to. So I just wanted to defend James Mangold for a minute.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, it rises above it. It's a better Western than a comic book movie, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It has very quiet moments that you don't usually get to see in X-Men movies, where Hugh Jackman gets to really show you what he's capable of.
Yeah, Justin, you need to watch this, and we can talk about it since it is a comic book movie, and we always talk about
Yeah,
the,
Yeah, this
yeah,
is
for the
the
record, I
comic
have
book
not seen this one.
podcast.
yeah, essentially. But I think this is a movie that rises above that. So, anyways, Justin.
So my number 4 pick is an anime film, which technically came out in 2016 in Japan, but it didn't come out here in the States until 2017. But it's called Your Name, and it's sort of a time travel body displacement story. But yeah, basically 2 characters, a boy and a girl, switch bodies, and I know, Mike, you've seen it, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah. So they switch bodies like every other day. They wake up as like the other person, right? Mm-hmm. That's the vibe. I wasn't totally sure of the timeline, but yeah. But it's really it's really good. It does things that I guess with like anime you can get away with a little bit more fantastical stuff and not have me question it too much. So it has that going for it, and just the characters in the story and how they try to communicate with each other and what they learn by living as the other person and the stuff that unfolds. It's just really moving. Like, I got really attached to the characters and pretty emotional while watching it, without being spoiler free.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very rewarding movie. I find, like, if you stick with it to the end, it goes places that you don't think it's going to go, and I think you'll have fun watching it because it actually is really rewarding, and I agree, it's a really great movie.
Yeah, this is one I've heard about previous to you. I didn't you talking about it, and now I really want to go see it. I've only heard positive things. Is it available anywhere that I can rent it, or do they have it at Blockbuster?
Sure.
I know that J.J. Abrams is actually planning on doing a English language remake. I think producing. I don't know if that would be a good idea, but
Is it live action?
Yeah, a live action English language remake is, I assume, what he wants to make. Do you have any concerns about that, Justin?
I mean, too soon would be my thoughts on it. I think sometimes you need to let things sit and I guess like it feels like if we do it this soon, it's just going to be a rehash of the same thing. You know, like sometimes when you do a remake of something, the world has changed and the
You can put a new
the
spin.
climate of whatever that movie was about. Yeah, you can do something a little different with it, and I don't know. I just feel like this close, it's just going to be the same thing, just live action and
Right.
probably worse.
And I can't help but wonder, and I will remain spoiler-free on For Your Name, but there is a plot element of that movie that is very heavily influenced in Japanese culture that I wonder if would be lost somewhere in the culture jump from there to here.
Yeah.
I want to be vague, but basically there are things that I don't think will work outside of Japan in that plot.
I mean, maybe that's
Well,
what
you guys watched it and liked
the English or the live action version would an Americanized one would have for it. Maybe they can just touch on some of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. The
Yes,
remake.
you should watch it, Chris, because it's
Indeed.
good. It's original, although we've already determined that original animated movies do exist, but it is an original property.
Soon to be a remake.
Yes.
Soon to be another one. Yeah. Okay, Mike, do you want to go ahead? I guess we're on to number 3 now.
My number 3 is Stephen King's It. This is the 2017 adaptation that just came out, I think, in September, and actually made a lot of money and makes the second part inevitable coming out in the next couple of years. But did either of you guys see It?
Yeah.
Which one?
It?
Which?
See it.
Oh, it. All right, I'm sorry. No, I did not.
Didn't? Oh, you should. I actually really liked it. This was actually really close to being in my top 5, just partially because I'm not super big on horror films, because a lot of times I find that they disappoint me.
Oh, indeed.
So it feels kind of risky to go for a horror film because it can very easily not be good. And so I was just really pleased to have such a mainstream horror film come out and be really good.
Yeah,
I was into it.
Yeah, I agree. I went to the I think I was there opening night or the night after. I can't remember. Opening weekend for sure, and I wasn't looking forward to it the whole time it was being made until the reviews started to circulate and it was actually being well received. So I thought to myself, all right, I'll go see this movie. I remembered the miniseries when I was a little kid scared me pretty bad, but I also don't remember anything that happened in it other than like a few scenes where Pennywise was scary.
Who's the director? Is this Cary Fukunaga?
No, he was going to do it, but then he ended up getting removed from the project. And let me see if I can bring it up real quick without wasting too much time. This one was actually shot by the director of Mama. It was a horror movie that came out with Jessica Chastain a couple of years ago.
I actually saw that.
I never saw that movie, but I saw the short that inspired it, and the short was really good.
Andy Machete? I don't know how you say his last name, but anyway, he's also directing the second one now because this one was such a hit. And it's good, but I think it starts out with the scene that I'm not going to give away, but if you've seen any adaptation of it or read it, you know what scene it is. It's probably the most famous scene.
I think it's in the trailer, so if you want to
talk
about it, I think that's fine. It's not a spoiler to talk about the first scene of a movie.
Basically, there's a scene where a little boy is being coaxed into a storm drain by Pennywise the clown. And that scene actually disturbed me and upset me in ways that I did not think it would. Because there's just something inherently creepy about a predator preying on a child and trying to coax him somewhere, even if it is a little fantastical and he's like an evil clown. Just that imagery and that scenario just truly upset me, the way it was filmed.
I was on edge that whole scene. I was like, because I've never seen the original adaptation with Tim Curry. I've never read the book or anything, so because I kind of know at some point this thing is gonna like grab him and pull him under.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a really good job with like the suspense in that scene.
And yeah, it's not the kind of horror movie that relies on jump out scares, but it's just the kind where
they are there though.
They are there.
Probably my least favorite part of the movie.
Sure, but even on that level, I think those scares, when they are there, they do work. But I think the movie offers so much more than that I wanted to just go ahead and reiterate that it doesn't rely on those, and you don't even if you think you know what you're getting into and you didn't watch it, I recommend give it another shot.
Yeah, my view on a horror film is that if you took out everything that was scary about it, is it still like a good film?
Yeah,
you know?
and
that's kind of how I judge whether or not a horror film's good. And yeah, if you took out anything creepy or weird or, well, not creepy because I guess that's part of the story, but any of those like jump scares and like, it's just a great story with like really good characters and
strong performances from kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it has the kid from Stranger Things in it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's funny.
Yeah, and it's a very Stranger Things influence, which I think is kind of circular because I think
Stephen King definitely influenced Stranger Things.
Yeah. And so if you're a fan of Stranger Things, I think it definitely it is for you.
Sure.
And I know Chris is a fan.
Cool. I'm gonna have to watch that. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So Chris, you're number 3.
Do you want to do this where so we tied on this one. We both have the same one. So and then we'll talk about it later. But so both Justin and I had Blade Runner 2049 as our number 3 pick. Just real quick, it's a great sequel. I love. What is the director's name, Mike?
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
I can never say it. I can never pronounce it.
I used to say Villanueva, which I think is fun to say, but
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. But that I don't think I've seen a movie. I haven't seen what is the Twins or Enemy. I haven't seen Enemy from him. But all the movies I have seen by him, I have loved, and this is not any different. I really enjoyed it. Really moody, really quiet. It's a slow-moving movie, but the mood that's set is just really great.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the original Blade Runner. And so I was excited for this one. I did make it to theaters to see it. It's really beautiful. The soundtrack is great. The performances are interesting to me. I think I've heard and seen some jokes of people saying Ryan Gosling is a little like wooden and doesn't do anything in it, but I kind of disagree.
And that's what he's supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I'm a big fan of sci-fi and like the concepts that it brings up, which we can talk about a little bit later when we get to Blade Runner again. So yeah, I guess that brings us back to Mike.
Number 2.
All right, number 2. I have the movie we mentioned earlier in the show, Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. I went and saw this movie in 70 millimeter, not IMAX 70 millimeter, but just regular 70 millimeter. But it was still a beautiful experience. Man, I gotta say, this movie, just on a technical level, it just looks great. It sounds great. It's so simple and self-contained. You know, I don't think any of the characters, they might have names, but they don't need names in the movie. You just kind of follow them, and things are happening, but it doesn't seem contrived. You're following these people trying to get off this beach alive, and it's very moving. I don't know. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah, it's actually. I'll go ahead and it's my number 2 as well, so we can just talk about it. Yeah, I saw it. I actually saw it on the IMAX in 70 millimeter.
Nice.
I think it's it attacks you. It attacks your senses.
Yeah.
Like it is loud, and like. He's done this before, Christopher Nolan, with Interstellar, where like the ambient noise is just really loud a lot of times. But in this one, it just attacks. It's so loud, and you feel like you're under attack, and your seat vibrates. And like when those airplanes are flying over, it's scary. Yeah, when you do that. Let me ask you: have you seen it, Justin?
I haven't seen it yet. I was a little bit lukewarm on Interstellar, and I think the film before that Nolan did was The Dark Knight Rises, right?
I was more lukewarm on that than any of them.
I was less than lukewarm on that. I was pretty cold on The Dark Knight Rises. So I guess I wasn't feeling too hyped on Nolan when this came out, but I've heard good things, and I want to see it.
This is one that well, it's probably too late now, but you really need to see in the movie theater, I think.
Maybe there's a dollar theater still playing it.
Yeah, at the very least, when you see it, don't see it on as big a TV as you can, and with as loud a sound as you can.
What do you think? I guess we don't want to really spoil it. So yeah, just a great movie, I think. Christopher Nolan, and you're right. I was lukewarm on Interstellar, too cold, and I think I probably like Dark Knight Rises a little bit better. But yeah, the last two movies were not super great from Christopher Nolan, and Christopher Nolan's a guy that I've been following since Memento that I love, and so I was like, this is a return to form for him. And
I think the reason this is so successful is the same reason I think Following is so successful. I think this might be my favorite movie of his besides Following. And I think what they have in common is they're not as ambitious story-wise. He's not trying to... I think what failed in Interstellar, and I'll be brief and spoiler-free, which is just that I don't think some of the emotional twists I wasn't there for. They didn't land for me. Yeah. I think in a movie like Dunkirk, it's just simple. It's just you're following some characters for a certain amount of time. There doesn't need to be any big, huge, dramatic twists just to hook you. You know, this is just an event, and experiencing it is enough.
Yeah, it's human. It's real. It's real life. Which I'm trying to think of what the last one that he did. I never saw Insomnia.
Insomnia is
very good. Yeah.
Is that a bit more like real and human?
It's a detective drama, so I would say it's more so than like Batman or Interstellar, but
yeah, it's other ones of Batman, Inception, Interstellar. They're all sort of sci-fi.
They're all high concept stuff. Like
Prestige. Also, I mean, but that's kind of a little bit more
high concept. I think
it's high. I think high concept because there's. The Prestige is the trick at the end, but I think more human than perhaps some of his like the Batman movies.
Oh, sure.
There's not a giant set piece in the middle of it. What was the other one that he did? Because he would do Inception.
Yeah.
I like Inception.
Yeah, but it's also definitely high concept. That movie's just concept.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Dunkirk. Chris and I's number 2.
Justin.
My number 2, yeah. My number 2 has already been brought up. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I really just loved it. There were things I didn't like about it, but it's for me, at least in the spectrum of Star Wars films, it's a flawed masterpiece. Mm-hmm. I think there's so many good things about it. There were moments that made my jaw drop in ways that like other Star Wars films and other films in general haven't done that often, but in ways that like the first time I saw like the Death Star explode when I first watched like Star Wars: A New Hope, right? Like, and first experience like the whole battle around the Death Star, and like I remember I saw it in theaters when they re-released them around like with the prequels, and of course I'd seen them on VHS before, but I just remember there's this moment like in the theater watching it when like the X-Wing dips into like the tunnel trenches they're going in on their run, and like and I was just like, as a kid, like just it was magical, and like just I was so into it, and I had that with this movie, which I don't think I quite had any moment quite like that in Force Awakens, although I did like Force Awakens. I don't think I had anything even close to it in any of the prequels, but it just had these moments, and I guess like the involving light speed, involving the big final battle of the film where there's like those moments really happened for me, where I just felt like a kid again.
Yeah, I actually think so. We talked about it earlier, but so they had to make The Force Awakens, and it had to be, we know what Star Wars is, right? And then what this movie does is it tosses it all out the window. And so it's like, we know what Star Wars is, but we can also surprise you, you know? And that's what I really got out of the Star Wars. And Star Wars would have been number 6 for me, you know, or number 7. It would have been right around there. I really liked it. But there's a moment very early on that was a continuation from the last movie. And the result, what Luke Skywalker does, you know, all right, well, this is going to be different. That's a surprise, and you're in for a ride. And you're right. There's lots of stuff that happens that's surprising and funny. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I'm right
I
there
know,
with
Mike,
you guys.
I know you've talked about Star Wars a little bit. Did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, after seeing it, I've seen it more than once at this point, and I think the second time I saw it, I did enjoy it more, and the comedy at the beginning landed with Donald Gleason. Donald Gleason is in this movie, like he was in The Force Awakens, and I think it makes his part in The Force Awakens even better, because in The Force Awakens, there's a part where he gives a speech, and he's really passionate, and it almost seems like he's in a different movie than everyone else. And
Yeah.
I think what they did with his character in this movie kind of makes that scene even better in retrospect, in my opinion. I think he's aware of, he's in on the joke. He's a little bit of a buffoon, and
Like
I
the
think,
actor?
Yeah, I think he rises to the occasion in this one, and I think his opening scene, he is a little joke, and he just makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's between, there's, what was the Alex Garland movie? Ex Machina?
Yeah.
They were, Poe Dameron and Domhnall Gleeson were in it together. Anyways, just a small thing.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Yeah. And I like it because I don't think it quite spoon-fed everything to the audience, and there was lots of stuff going on, like subtle sort of things for you to notice and like things for you to fill in with your head. And I'm thinking specifically about the Laura Dern character. Like, and I guess this goes back to our movie news a little bit with the backlashes. Like some of the backlash that I've heard, or like things that people talk about, is that like, why doesn't Laura Dern just tell Poe her plan and the people her plan, and then that whole casino planet could have been avoided? And
That complaint makes me mad, though.
it makes me mad too. And because they give you enough information for you to fill that out in your head. And like in another Star Wars movie, perhaps there would have been dialogue explaining that situation exactly. And briefly, what I think it is that they've been tracked through light speed, which has never happened before and is impossible. So the logical assumption would be that they probably have someone on board, right? That's like that's like informing the First Order of where they are, or tracking them. You know, they have a spy amongst their ranks, and they might just in general be worried about that. And so you have to be careful who you tell things to. Just because someone is like gung-ho and insists they need to know doesn't mean she needs to tell them.
Yeah, you don't get
And
to
that's
just
a
know things.
Yeah,
'cause you demand to.
in another movie, they would spoon feed that line to you. She would pull off she would go off with like some other character who's trusted. I think Leia's in a coma at that point, which might be the only other person she would trust enough to tell, and tell him like, listen, I can't tell him because we don't know if we have a traitor, and they don't tell us that and let us like fill that in. And I don't know, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, actually, we talked about Star Wars for a while, and we didn't even get to the Porgs. I mean, or the little lizard nuns. And just as a real quick thing, you know, the Porgs weren't nearly as bad as I thought they were going to be. Like you were talking about things being in the background. Like I thought the Porgs were fine. They were just in the background. Other stuff was happening, and then they'd be like doing their cute little thing on the
They were
sides.
just a garnish.
Just a garnish.
Did you guys hear that Rian Johnson actually had to add the Porgs because the puffins were all over the island, and they couldn't get them out of the shot. So the Porgs were designed to cover up the already existing native puffins.
Really?
So that's why the Porgs were a necessity that became
Fascinating.
like a cute, like, hey, we can make some money off these, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. And I also like the lizard nuns. I thought that was like little funny moments.
Yeah.
They're not Ewoks. They're not a main part of the story, but they're just in the background. And maybe every once in a while they get their own little shot and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they look
Not
pretty great,
overdone.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're on to all of our number ones now.
All right.
So, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, so my number one is a movie that was mentioned earlier by both of them, Blade Runner 2049. And I will just go ahead and say that I am a huge fan of the original Blade Runner. My dad showed it to me when I was very young, too young to really appreciate Blade Runner or understand it. But I remembered that scene in the house. Spoilers for Blade Runner, I guess. But the climax takes place in an old abandoned house. And I remember that scene stayed with me for years. I watched Final Cut whenever it came out in theaters, and I thought it was amazing. But I did not want a sequel, ever. Even when Ridley Scott was attached to direct it, I didn't want it. When Harrison Ford was coming back, I didn't want it. When a new director was announced, I wanted it even less. But then it came out, and it surpassed everything that I feared it would be. It's got the same vibe as the first one. It doesn't answer any questions that you don't want answered from the first one. It doesn't cheapen it in any kind of way. It expands the world. It plays with the same ideas that the first one started, and takes them to possibly more interesting places. And I know it wasn't a huge financial hit, so I doubt we're going to get the franchise out of it. But I actually appreciate that. I would not be sad if we never got another Blade Runner after this. But that being said, I'm very happy this one does exist.
I certainly understand it being like a number one pick. Like, I think it's certainly deserving of that. It does what like all good sci-fi films should do. It makes you ask questions about humanity, which the first one does too. I think as you said, this one takes it to a bit of a new level and takes that question like a little bit deeper. And the same as you, like I was so turned off to the idea. Even when I watched the first trailer, I was so like not into the idea.
Oh, me neither.
Already. I think I was
hated
like
the first trailer.
Predisposed. Yeah, maybe it was the trailer, but I thought it might also be me being a little bit prejudiced against like the idea of new Blade Runner. But like I kind of turned my nose up at the first trailer. I was like, oh no.
I was like,
Have
the
we
vibe
just-
is
are
all
we just
wrong.
getting a big giant action film out of Blade Runner, which I didn't want. And
Was the first trailer action oriented? I don't know that I saw the first
it
one. I saw one.
felt
of
like
them.
it was going to be an action.
It
film to
focused
me.
very heavily on like the little bit of action that is in the movie.
But yeah, it surpassed my expectations by giving me what I wanted.
Yeah, it surpassed my expectations by circumventing them. Basically, by being something completely different than what I was anticipating and fearing it would be. Maybe I should have had faith that they knew what Blade Runner was and that they were aware of what made the first one such a hit. But I don't think it's weird to be worried that Warner Brothers was going to mess up Blade Runner. But
Well, yeah, to me, it wasn't Warner Brothers. I think when, like we talked about earlier, but when I knew Denis Villeneuve was going to be part of it, I was interested. That was when the director, when he came on, that was when I was interested. I was sold. I was going to go see it because that director's so good.
Well, I had seen his movies, but I had liked all his movies that I had seen, but it wasn't until Arrival came out where I was like, oh, I'm glad this guy's doing Blade Runner.
I think I've only seen Arrival, but I think Arrival's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Arrival's pretty great, and that was a movie. Whenever I realized that he was doing Blade Runner, I was like, well, maybe this is like the silver lining. Like, at least this guy knows mood, and this guy knows how to take some pauses and some quiet breaks in movies and build up some tension. And I think he did great in Blade Runner. I think that he was the guy for the job.
Let me ask you guys. What was the name of the director of the original one? I just forgot.
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, yeah. He has kind of Mark Hamilled Blade Runner 2049 by saying that it's too long. Like, he's kind of put it down. What do you guys feel about that? I mean, because he is the creator of the original. Sure.
I think it's the fact that Ridley Scott hasn't made a movie as good as Blade Runner 2049 since Blade Runner Final Cut. So, and I think that's probably, like, Alien and Blade Runner are Ridley Scott's big movies that I think stand up.
His best movies.
Yeah, he's got some hits that he had, like Thelma and Louise, and Gladiator and things like that. But
one of those are as good.
Yeah, but I don't really trust what Ridley Scott thinks is good or bad anymore. You know,
he did both the most recent like Alien franchise movies, Prometheus and Covenant, right?
Well, and those are pretty controversial. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris. I didn't mean to, but
that's all right.
I actually do like both of those movies more than the average moviegoer seems to like them.
Well, I think Ridley Scott isn't interested in aliens anymore. He's interested in androids.
Yeah,
and that's what's going on with those movies.
And also with this Blade Runner movie. So it seems like he's doing that in the wrong franchise.
Yeah, he should have kept on doing Blade Runner.
I take his opinion on it with a grain of salt because he has a vested interest, and I imagine he wouldn't have minded directing another Blade Runner film.
I think he just said it was the time constraints. He just didn't have time because he was more excited about his Prometheus follow-up, Alien Covenant, than he was.
I think, what we were talking about,
one
Mark
of those
Hamill,
movies is better than the other.
It's true.
But I just think it's unprofessional. Like, you don't have to say that.
Well, I think now that the promotional tour is already over, I think he was framing it more like, why didn't Blade Runner do well? And he was saying, like, it's too long.
That it was
slow.
too long? Okay.
That's why it didn't do well. Not necessarily, this is what... Because obviously, like, I don't think he was saying that at the time of release. I think if it had been a hit, he probably wouldn't say those things at all. You know,
Blade Runner, the original, if it came out now, would not do well.
No,
I don't know how it did
no.
when it originally came out, but it would not do well.
Yeah, Blade Runner is a very uneventful movie. I think the actual main character, the Blade Runner of the titular role, Deckard, I don't think he has any, like... does he even affect the overall outcome of anything that happens, besides, like, maybe like one or two things in the movie? Anyway, I digress.
Well, not in the sense that, like, the androids are all gonna die, anyways, and he doesn't stop Rutger Hauer's character from killing Tyrell. I think we can spoiler the original Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He doesn't stop any of that from happening, but he does kill a few of the androids, and but otherwise,
and comes up with he realizes some stuff, some profound stuff. He gets
I think
that awesome speech dropped on him in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Blade Runner 2049 is obviously a very good movie. It's the only movie that made it into all three of our list. So
it is
great movie. And anybody else have any final thoughts on that one?
Go see it if you haven't.
Yeah, see it.
Yeah. Okay. On to Chris. Chris, you're number one.
My number one is so when we worked at Blockbuster together, we watched Lost a lot. And when Lost ended, a lot of people were upset that we didn't get the answers that we wanted. I think it's kind of the same thing as what happened with Star Wars. Like, you'd been living for 5 years with these answers or these questions, and I think ultimately in Lost, the questions didn't matter. But so Damon Lindelof, who did Lost,
and Prometheus.
HBO, and Prometheus. But I don't even think Damon Lindelof is super happy with Prometheus.
No.
But anyways, he went to HBO and he did The Leftovers, which is my number one. And what he did, because there's this event that happens in The Leftovers show, and he's like, look, there's going to be this thing. You're going to have questions about it, but that doesn't matter. Like, don't ask questions. We're never going to answer like this big event. So basically the event is like 30% of the world's population just disappears, and it's about the people that have to stay on Earth, or stay behind and deal with the grief of losing loved ones. And it delves into religion, into spirituality. The third season, which is the most recent one and the last one, starts off. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist. And growing up, there's this this group called the Mennonites, and they had this thing called the Great Disappointment that I grew up being taught about. And that was when the day that the Mennonites had tried to figure out when Jesus was going to come back to earth, right? So they sold off all their stuff, and then, of course, Jesus didn't come. And the third season opens with that sequence, this thing that is so personal to me, the way I grew up. I don't necessarily believe in that religion anymore, but it's just something that I have always dealt with, like since I was a little kid, and it's so personal to me that it's just a genius show.
The third season came out this year.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen some, Justin, haven't you?
I've seen part of like the first season.
Yeah, the
so
first
far,
season
so good.
isn't
Same here.
the best. Like how you're talking about with Black Sails, you got to get past the first few episodes.
Shows need to find their legs sometimes.
Yeah, the second season of Leftovers is perhaps the best season of television on TV. It is amazing. I want maybe one of our you guys can catch up with me and we can do one of our off
week episode.
Yeah, because I want to talk about it.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down.
But yeah, just extremely personal to me, and I'm sad that it's gone. And any resentment I had from Lost, which I like Lost, but was made up by the Leftovers, and it was just it's hard for me because it's rare that you get something that's so personal to you, right? Like, and this is something that's just like just right there, like it was made for me almost, Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's my thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm down. Let's check it out. We'll do an off-week episode on
we'll
it. I say let's do it. I don't know when we'll do it.
Yeah,
but we'll do it.
There you go. It's been mentioned live.
Yeah, it is forever in stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the last one. My number one pick, which again comes from my film festival adventures, and it's a film called Bear With Us. It's a comedy film. I guess it has actually come out now on like video and or instant and demand,
like on iTunes?
Instant video, whatever. Yeah, iTunes, Amazon, all of these places.
You can go rent it now.
You can go rent it now, and I don't think it had a theatrical release, so that is sort of its big release. So I'm going to count it as it coming out in 2017.
Do it.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's called Bear With Us. It has Christy Carlson Romano in it. It's kind of what is one of the two big names in it, and was Ren Stevens in the Disney show Even Stevens. She was the voice of Kim Possible. She did basically a lot of Disney stuff. And then the other big character in it is Cheyenne Jackson, who was on 30 Rock and I believe Glee for a little while. But it's this screwball slapstick comedy. Comedy is one of my favorite genres, and I love a good comedy probably more than I love a good action or any other genre. But it's a mile a minute comedy. Like there's jokes throughout it constantly that like sort of like Arrested Development or 30 Rock, where like you tend to miss jokes until you rewatch them because you're laughing at the jokes that have just happened, and you just don't have time to catch all of the jokes in one viewing. And I've watched it a few times since seeing it, and it definitely holds up on rewatch value. You catch things that you didn't catch the first time. But the story of it is this guy previously has proposed to his girlfriend, and she turned him down. And when asked why, she couldn't think of a good excuse, and she said, because he told her he wanted to marry because she's perfect, and she said, "No, I'm not perfect. I'm afraid of bears." And so he hatches this plan to go on a hunting trip where he's going to fake a bear killing spree, have her kill the fake bear. He is a bear. They've rented a bear suit, and he's going to have his friend who comes with him like dressed up as a bear, and he's going to have her kill the bear and overcome her fear of bears, so that then she will realize she is perfect and that she'll marry him, and he's going to propose right after she kills the bear. So it's this really like screwball, like
it's a solid
comedy
plan.
Comedy of errors. Yeah,
Nothing can go wrong.
And so it's a very indie film. It's all shot in black and white. And it's really dialogue heavy, clever dialogue. The performances in it are amazing. They have the friend character who's kind of like the comic relief, is just incredible. Like I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but that guy deserves to be a fucking comedy star. He's amazing. It's absolutely worth whatever price it is on Amazon. I'm sure it's like $1.99, $2.99. Bear with us. The director is William J. Stribling, who I didn't meet him at the festival, but I did meet the writer, whose name is Russ Nickel. And they've actually produced. They're working on some like sitcom for like some sort of like sci-fi channel, something or other. But this movie, Bear With Us, that's like a grizzly bear.
This is another
Actually,
one.
I think that's the way you spell bear either way.
Yeah,
but whatever.
If it was the other kind of Bear With Us, it would probably be a different kind of movie.
Yeah, it'd be a little more NC-17 and a little less fun. But I have. It's better than any comedy that I've seen of like the last probably like 5 years. Like it made me laugh harder constantly.
We should. This is another one we should do on an off-week episode. Maybe it doesn't have to be for a full topic, but like the three of us, because this isn't the first time you've told me about this movie. You know, like so you really.
No, I told everyone about it when I saw it, and actually, just a quick anecdote about it. That this festival was the one where my film had its like world premiere, and my film is also a comedy, and myself and my co-writer for my film, we went and saw this film like the night before our film showed, and we
was
walked
this at the Lone Star Festival.
Yeah, yeah, and so we walked out of like seeing Bear With Us, and we're just like, what are we doing in this festival? How did we even get in when movies like this exist that are this funny? Like our movie's not funny. No one's gonna like it. It's awful. Like it really like it put us down, but in the best way because we enjoyed it so much.
Good.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a happy story or a sad story.
But regardless, it's an endorsement for Bear With Us.
Yeah.
Yes, it ended well because our movie did go over well. And my film actually ended up winning Audience Choice Award, which Bear With Us would have been eligible for too. So, it's a happy ending.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
How much did you have to pay the judges?
$100,000 each.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I don't know. Just kidding. I don't have that kind of money to pay one person.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm glad we didn't do a top 10 because we're a ways into this episode.
Yeah.
And,
but that's it for top 5.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Just about an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do this again a year from now.
Yeah.
Already looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'll meet you guys the exact same time, same place. January 1st, 2019.
Yeah.
Oh god, it's 2018 now. That's weird.
Yeah. And okay, so we've done our top 5, so now we'll do our top 3, which is our recurring segment. So we have to do it. So for this one, we're just going to do our top 3 most anticipated films of 2018. Just looking forward to the next year, and
or TV.
Yeah, I guess it's not just films.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'll break up the order a little bit. And Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, in no particular order. I'm going to Isle of Dogs. I love Wes Anderson. But I am excited. I really enjoyed the Fantastic Mr. Fox. That was a stop animation movie. The trailer on this looks amazing. And I just can't wait to see it. So, yes, that is... What do you guys think? Have you guys seen the trailer?
I have, and I am incredibly excited for the Island of Dogs, or Isle of Dogs.
Yeah.
I'm into it. I was getting a little burnt out on Wes Anderson. As much, actually, I love Grand Budapest. I think it's one of his best films. But there's a bit of a feeling that, like, everyone parodies Wes Anderson's style. Like the SNL did like a horror parody of Wes Anderson, and like when your style becomes a parody, I kind of like maybe you should change it and like shift away. So I was getting a little iffy on the Wes Anderson style. I was hoping he would depart from it, and I don't think he has, but at least he's gone to the stop motion animation, which we haven't seen since Fantastic Mr. Fox. So it is a bit of a...
I don't think Wes Anderson's ever going to get away from his style. That's just his thing.
Give people what they want, I guess. Or,
I mean, I'm
sure it makes him happy too.
Sometimes the style can be a little too cutesy, or but it's fun. And I remember watching the Grand Budapest Hotel and just smiling. It's not my favorite movie ever, but I was just smiling because I was like, I'm so happy that this exists. Because it's so fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
okay, Mike.
My number 3 movie that I'm anticipating next year would be the follow-up to my favorite Disney Pixar movie, The Incredibles. So they're coming out with The Incredibles 2. And I think this is Brad Bird's return to form after he had Tomorrowland, which didn't turn out so well, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which I think did turn out well.
Yeah, that was a fun
commercially. Yeah. So, but anyway,
Brad Bird is doing it?
Yeah, Brad Bird is returning, and it's exciting to get back into the world of The Incredibles, because I thought that was a really fun, family adventure cartoon when it came out back in the day, and I'm excited to see more.
Yeah, this is the superhero movie I'm most excited about seeing.
That's,
for a change.
Yeah, that's true. That's the only superhero movie on my most anticipated list.
I'm looking forward to that one. Pixar, I think, has been a little hit or miss lately. They've done some sequels that I haven't been into, like
I haven't
Cars.
seen. Have you guys seen Coco?
I have seen Coco. Yes.
What'd you think?
I liked Coco quite a bit. I cried at the end.
Yeah, I from what I understand, Coco's kind of a return to form. But you're right. Pixar has been kind of hit or miss.
Is Coco Pixar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, because they put that. We had a whole thing where they put that snowman.
That's right. That stupid thing. I think
Olaf. Did you see it with the Olaf short?
Yes.
Was it as bad as people say?
Yeah. No, it was like 20 minutes. I was upset. I remember turning to Mindy, my girlfriend, at one point during it, and I was just like, "This is like 20 minutes long. When is this going to end?" And I don't know if I like that snowman character in Frozen that much. I don't know if I am particularly crazy about Josh Gad. But that's neither here nor
I
there.
liked him in Frozen. I thought he was.
But 20 minutes of just
he
him.
was okay. But yeah, I don't want to see just him.
And also, it just offends my sensibilities. Like I feel like it's a 20-minute commercial. And everything that they've done before, there's nothing wrong with those. I look forward to Pixar
6-minute shorts, 7-minute shorts, less.
Yeah. I look forward to Pixar movies for those shorts,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was happy when it first came on, and then saddened very quickly into it when I realized that it was not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But regardless, Coco was good, and and I'm also looking forward to The Incredibles too.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, my first one, and I think I'm also in no particular order, because how do you really rank this?
Yeah.
Is A Quiet Place. Which I think comes out relatively soon, because I've seen trailers for it a couple times. Are either of you guys familiar with A Quiet Place?
No. Tell me more.
It is. It's Emily Blunt and
I'm sold.
Yeah, I'm in.
Jim from The Office, whose name I'm blanking on, John Krasinski.
Yeah.
The husband.
Yeah, which I think they're married in real life.
Yeah.
But so the
It's a
trailer.
good-looking couple.
You should watch the trailer if you haven't seen it, because I think it looks really interesting. But it seems kind of like a horror suspense film. And it seems like there's these alien monster creatures, something or other, that hunt based on sound. And they find people based on sound. So if you don't make a sound, they can't find you. So it seems like
Tremors.
Yes. And so in this world, they've adapted. You come into the story when they're living in this world where these creatures are everywhere. So they have to live a totally silent life.
Oh, it sounds like that. What was that horror movie where the kids break into
Tremors.
the house?
Where there's the blind guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't speak. Don't
Yeah.
breathe.
Don't speak. Yeah.
Don't breathe.
Don't breathe. Yeah.
A little bit like that, and it could very well end up being bad, especially if it's coming out soon, like in the February range.
I mean,
I just
Emily
think
Blunt
it's-
and Jim from The Office. I'm in.
I think watch the trailer, because it doesn't sound that great. I think when I explain it, hearing myself explain it, I know it doesn't sound that interesting, but the trailer's really working for me. It's just suspenseful.
It's a good idea if they do it right. Who's directing it?
Yeah, I think John Krasinski, maybe,
Okay, yeah,
but I'm
because
not totally sure on that.
He's directed some other movies too. That'll be interesting to see.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm sold.
Yeah.
All right, is it me again?
You're up, Chris.
My next one is Annihilation, Alex Garland's second directorial debut. Did he also write this one, Mike?
I believe so. I believe
probably so.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I really like Alex Garland. I liked Ex Machina.
Me too.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with this movie. I also like Natalie Portman; she's in it, and I actually haven't really seen the whole trailer for it. But just because Alex Garland, Natalie Portman, I don't do a lot of trailers anymore. I try not to.
The
Like,
trailer. There's been
one.
2 trailers for this movie. The first one looked really good, and the second one looked really bad. But
it was like cut by the producer. Or
this
something.
is also on my most anticipated, so I'm just going to go ahead and step in here real quick.
Okay, sure.
So, actually, apparently, Alex Garland and one of the producers of the movie got in a disagreement where one of the producers wanted him to do some reshoots and some retooling of the movie
to make it more action
after some test audience screenings, and one of the other directors, or excuse me, other producers of the movie actually took Alex Garland's side, and so his cut of the movie has been preserved, and that will be the version being released. But that whole drama actually makes me more excited for it because
Isn't this a weird thing where it's getting released on a Netflix quickly too, or
I'm
something?
not
along
sure,
those
but
lines?
I don't know. But apparently it's challenging, and the studio is concerned that audiences won't get it. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm on
how
board.
can they not be? I mean, I'm on board too, but how can they not be after the failure of Blade Runner 2049?
Oh, absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
yeah. So-
Alex Garland was
and-
basically saying that I gave them the finished script, and they agreed to do it,
Yeah,
and that was the time to voice concerns.
and I say failure of Blade Runner 2049, and there is nothing failure about it. I guess it's financial failure. Because
Critical
it's
success.
Yeah. All right.
Guess I'll go next. And I think I'm going to go with The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, which is, I don't think it's like guaranteed to be out in 2018, but there are rumors, and I think Terry Gilliam
He
has,
rapped on the filming.
it's actually been filmed, and I guess for those who don't know, it's Terry Gilliam's movie. It's something he's been trying to do for a long time. There was a documentary about his first attempt at doing it called the Lost in La Mancha,
Which is really good.
and it's a great documentary. And so I guess because I watched that, I'm a little invested in the story, and I guess I want to see if this film turns out like
it
it's
worth
not
the
so
wait?
much that I'm interested in the story or anything, but like is it worth it? Is it worth all the trouble that's gone through to actually get this film to be made?
Oh man, what if it's just the worst movie? What if it's just
that's a strong possibility, guys. I'm curious.
yeah. But
Yeah, that's where my anticipation lies. I
right,
think.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's like, when did Lost in La Mancha come out? That's like 20 years ago, or 20 years he's been
I
trying
think
to
it
make
was
this?
like 15 to 20 years ago that was happening, that he was trying to get the first
Yeah.
one off the ground and get it going.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay.
All right,
Chris.
So my number one, or well, I guess not number one, in no particular order, Westworld. I loved the first season of Westworld, and I'm super excited for the second one to see where it goes from here. I think Westworld asks questions that like Blade Runner asks, and does it's action and thought provoking at the same time. And I am really excited for it, and can't wait. I think it's actually pretty soon, like in the spring sometime here, a couple months. So, have you guys seen it?
Yeah, I've actually seen season 1. I didn't realize season 2 was so close. Once they told me that we would have to wait over a year for it, I kind of just wrote it off like, oh, I'll just never see this again. And
Right.
here we are.
I don't want to think about it again.
Fast approaching time, so I need to watch season 1 again
Yeah.
and refresh myself.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, like, as you said, where they go with it, because it seems like the first one ended off in like what I would expect the full story of Westworld to be.
That's the beauty
Right.
of it. If they had never
Yeah.
been renewed, it's still like a standalone
It's a story.
thing.
They've,
It
they've
still
told
works.
their story.
Yeah, so the whole next season will pose like entirely, I think, like new questions, not necessarily new themes, but like whole new
Yeah.
things to wonder about and new events that like I really can't even begin to guess at what it'll be about. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some inklings. I think there might be another world that they visit, like another robot world.
Oh, yeah, they kind of hint at like the samurai world.
I'm a little worried about that, but
well, they had a sequel to the actual Westworld movie called Future World in like the 70s or something. So I wonder if we're gonna see that one.
yeah.
Cool. Anyway,
Mike, what's your top?
So my last movie that I am anticipating, I would say, is probably going to be The Predator by Shane Black.
Oh, yeah.
This is his reboot. This is the second attempt in the past few years of a reboot to the Predator franchise. But this time with writer...
second attempt?
Robert Rodriguez tried to reboot it with Predators and Adrian Brody a couple years ago, but that was no good. But now they're giving Shane Black a chance.
That's an actual movie that came out?
Predators?
Yeah, Predators,
Yeah.
yeah. Adrian Brody, Robert Rodriguez.
Came out summer of 2010 in theaters because I was in North Carolina that summer. And that's when I saw it.
It came and went. Yeah, well, it came and went.
Adrian Brody's the star.
Maybe I just forgot about it.
I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays Eric Foreman in that 70s
Topher
show.
Grace.
Topher Grace is in it, and
he ruins
spoiler
the movie.
alert. Yeah, he ruins the movie because it ends up that he's like the evil bad guy, which is just I don't know why Topher Grace
Stupid twist that it
would
didn't
ever
need to
be
happen.
put in that situation.
Yeah. Sorry to derail it. So
That's okay.
Shane Black is really awesome too. I'm excited about that.
Shane Black, the writer-director of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Nice Guys.
Lethal Weapon.
Wrote Lethal Weapon. I don't know if he wrote the other Lethal Weapons. I think at least the first one. He's good at buddy cop stuff. Buddies on an adventure together. He did that movie. Maybe you've heard of it, Iron Man 3. So which I think was probably his least good. But I'm still excited to see what he can do with a franchise that has kind of been written off at this point. But there's no reason it couldn't be rebooted into a successful franchise at any time. You can do horror, you can do action. So I think there's room for Predator to make a comeback, and I think a guy with a sense of humor like Shane Black, and I think maybe why not? Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, I think, and he wrote so many '80s movies that are, it's going to kind of fit. It fits. Shane Black with Predator fits.
And it can be R, so it won't be like him trying to fit into the Marvel cinematic universe, so it won't feel, I don't know, a little detached like Iron Man 3 did for me. It didn't feel like a Shane Black movie as much.
Yeah.
But, anyway, that's my number 3.
My last one is First Man, which I don't know a whole lot about, other than it's the story of Neil Armstrong and like the trip to the moon. But I believe it's to be directed by Damien Chazelle. If I'm
the guy that did
pronouncing the name correctly, but yeah, he did La La Land and Whiplash, and both of those films I really like. Particularly La La Land, I think is great. And so this seems like a departure for him, unless Neil Armstrong was like a heavy jazz musician. I'm not totally sure if he was or not.
Tell the story of Neil Armstrong's jazz career.
Yeah, maybe he got confused and thought it was Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I really know nothing about this. I don't think that there's a trailer for it. I think I saw a poster maybe, but just Damien Chazelle and general I like, and so I'm excited to see what he does next, especially with something that's not so jazz music based, and see him do something
or just music based in general.
Yeah, and to see him to step in a different direction.
Cool, that's exciting. I didn't know about that one, but I'm there for it.
So real quick, looking back on our list and our conversation in the news, how many of our movies are adaptations or sequels?
An existing property?
Yeah.
Well, so one of mine is Man Who Killed Don Quixote is...
No. I mean, of our top 5.
Oh. Yeah, Dunkirk was my only original one. I had a TV show, but that TV show was a prequel to Treasure Island. So.
Well, one of mine was a documentary, so that doesn't count. Your Name, the anime, was an original.
And Bear With Us.
And then Bear With Us was original.
Yeah, Dunkirk and The Leftovers and Baby Driver for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, could have been more.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Anyways, all right, so one last thing before we leave. Today is actually, we are recording on New Year's Day. What movie-related New Year's resolutions do we have?
Yeah. Mike, you want to go first?
Sure. So it's not necessarily a movie, but it has to do with a director that has movies in the collection. David Lynch.
Which collection is that?
The Criterion Collection. Excuse me. The collection. That's what we're calling it. But no, David Lynch. I actually have never seen any of Twin Peaks. So my New Year's resolution, I was really jealous of everyone enjoying Twin Peaks Season 3 this year. So I need to get through the old Twin Peaks so that I can get to the new Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think all three of us haven't seen.
No, I haven't seen any of it.
It's cool. So maybe if any of us watch any of it, we can do a conversation about it.
Yeah, it could be another off-week episode.
Yeah, we've got like 5 of those just listed off on this one episode alone. So we got our work cut out for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing that I've really wanted to do as well. Didn't they release it on the Criterion Collection? You just said that was it just the movie?
The film is on Criterion.
Okay.
Yeah, the Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, so from everything I understood, that movie was not very good, but
but it's part of the show. So I mean, I'm not gonna watch all of Twin Peaks and then leave that one out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Chris.
We went on to another podcast called Criterion Now, and it revealed to me that I have a lot of blank spots. So I want to try to watch some Fassbinder films and get into... Have you seen any Fassbinder films, Mike?
Yes, you should watch 2 of them that come to mind right now, Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. Mm-hmm. And the Marriage of Maria Braun. Mm-hmm. Both of those super good.
Cool. Well, that's and just kind of fill out those blank spots. I have some blank spots that I need to fill out. So that's my New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
More Russian cinema and German.
Russian. Yeah.
Well, Russian's also a blank spot for me. So
sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess mine has to do with a couple of box sets that I've known about from Criterion Collection that I've been wanting to watch for a long time. One of them, I guess, is more recently released on Criterion Collection, but I've known about the films for a long time, and that's the Decalogue, which is like the
those
10
are great.
1 hour. I think they're 10 1-hour movies, so it's like a 10-hour ordeal to get in, and I kind of want to watch them all as close together as possible. I don't know how necessary that is.
I do one a night. It's kind of like even
show.
with the leftovers, I don't feel like you want to binge those. You want to maybe do one a night, and same thing with the Decalogue. You're like one a night or one every other night. Don't rush through it.
No. But yeah, I love every other Kieslowski movie I've seen.
Have you seen
Three
the Colors?
Three Colors trilogy is great. I love it. So I just really want to watch the Decalogue, and it's one of those. It's like it's so monumentous. I kind of need to make a resolution to make myself watch it. And the second part to this also is The Human Condition. Oh, those are the two that I'm going to put as my resolution. Like
nice.
Kieslowski? I don't know The Human Condition.
Human Condition is not Kieslowski.
No,
it's
Japanese, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Japanese. I can't remember the director's name.
It's a big box set?
Yeah, it's like an 8-9 hour ordeal. It's I think it's a movie, more of a mini series, I guess, done up in like parts. But yeah, it's like 8-9 hours, and that I've always wanted to watch as well. So I'm just putting those two combined, like to knock out those 2 box sets as my resolution.
Kobayashi,
Maru from Star Trek.
Yep.
I'm so confused right
Masaki Kobayashi is the director. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, cool. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being on, Mike.
No
it was
problem.
really fun.
Thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
Maybe we'll have
guys.
you on next week.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll
Well,
see.
would've-
But yeah, that's. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Any final thoughts?
No, it was fun. I hope I didn't slow the momentum of the show down too much, or
this
make
hasn't
anyone
been a long
stop listening.
episode at all.
So,
No, I don't think.
I don't care if
it's
they
been
stop.
fun. But yeah, okay. Well, that does it for the show. As always, I want to thank you, the listener, for listening, and thank Mike again for being on the show.
you're welcome.
I thanked him too much.
Yeah,
That
no,
was too much.
no. And then, lastly, and not leastly, we're going to thank Jake Wagner Russell for creating our intro and outro music. If you want to listen to more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch. It's like hopscotch, but with a B. And, of course, once again, if you want to follow along with the show, give us your top fives. We're interested in hearing that. If you want to tell us how stupid our top fives were and how we're wrong about liking Blade Runner so much,
Send all that to Chris.
Send it to Chris Reeves at whatever his email is. Yeah. But yeah, you can like our podcast at Facebook, facebook.com/casuallycriterion podcast. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at casualcriterion. If you want to just email us directly, you can do that at casuallycriterion@gmail.com. Don't forget to review us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star review. Give us some thoughts too. There's room for typing. So
feedback.
Yeah, give us feedback that way. And yeah, it's really important for those iTunes reviews to happen, because that puts us up there and gets more people listening to the show.
We can grow the show.
It's true. In fact, hide all of your complaints under a 5-star review, and then they'll be read even better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So next week's episode is going to be Walkabout.
Yep, Criterion Spine number 10. Criterion Spine number 10. That's right. Let me double check. Yep, Criterion Spine number 10. Walkabout, Nicholas Rogue. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Until then, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.